Hey everyone, welcome in. Echohack and DiEoxidE here, back with a little bit of a speed running special. So essentially what we wanted to do here today is have a bit of a podcast and talk to y'all about the game as we're speed running to level 20. So we both started Sorcerers. We haven't moved our characters yet, so we haven't really started the timer yet. But DiEoxidE, how you feeling before we get started?
I'm feeling great. Feeling great. Excited to actually play a different class that I normally don't play. So this should be fun.
Yeah, I mean, how many hours have you logged on Rogue just this beta, just the last 2 days?
Oh man, 30.
30 hours already.
At least 35 hours roughly. Yeah.
Oh my god, man. So I think you're going to have a blast, like, just exploring a new class. Obviously, we've been talking with our Sorcerer Specialist Dread Scythe here at MAXROLL, who's filled us in on all the juicy details. And I've already gotten my Sorceress to level 25. I put a video up about that yesterday. But what I'm really interested in is the conversation here today. I think I'm going to learn a lot from Di here because, you know, Di, this game doesn't really have a meta yet. And we're kind of building it as we go. So anyway, before we get to the conversation, let's start the countdown. All right, 3, 2, 1. All right, let's go. All right, I gotta assign my skill points. Spark.
And we're off.
We are playing on veteran. You know, I've been thinking about this a little bit. I wonder if you can, like, optimize a little bit by playing on adventure a little bit and then swapping over to veteran at some point.
Probably, but I mean, I think, you know, as you know, people who play action RPGs, you know, the very first thing you want to do is, oh, I'm no ordinary person. I've been playing action RPGs for thousands of hours, right? So like, it's just natural to just do the hardest difficulty level, right, at the start. But for efficiency's sake, you know, you might be right.
I actually could not skip that conversation. Thankfully, I have my controller on my desk right in front of me, so I just clicked the O button on my controller, and I was able to skip that. We've noticed a few bugs, that being one of them. So if you want to skip these conversations, sometimes we're getting stuck here. So see, I didn't get stuck there for that time. Interesting.
Yeah, mine was working. When I did Rogue at the start, I was having that issue that echohack was mentioning.
Yeah, just you mash the escape key on your keyboard and absolutely nothing happens. So tell me, DiEoxidE, how do you feel about this tutorial so far? Like, this is really different than Diablo 1, Diablo 2, Diablo 3 even, right? Like, Diablo 2, you start in a town and you just go at it, right? In Diablo 3, you are, you know, 2 seconds out of the main town when you do the story, right? And you kill like
right.
10 skeletons and then you're in the town. This game is a little bit different.
Yeah, it almost just push you like in the middle of nowhere, like, you know, almost like somebody just like, you know, like, you know, beat you up and then kind of just tossed you into the wilderness, and you're just like, I'm not sure what happened, but I'm gonna try to find my way back. It's actually a really cool feel because like it makes you intrigued at the start, like you're more interested in what's going on because you have no idea why you're so far out in the middle of nowhere, right? So I think it's pretty cool. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the tutorial. In fact, one of the things I think is really important in a game is the tutorial, and really just how the tutorial be, if you know what I mean. Because I'll give you an example of a bad tutorial. Halo 4. Did you play Halo 4, Di?
Nah. I've heard stories, but
So you start Halo 4 and Master Chief is like locked in this container or something, and they're like, All right, Master Chief, we need to do your checks. Look up, look left, look right, look down.
God, really?
All right, now press the A button. That's the button that you use to fire guns. That's gonna be an important button. Uh-oh, something bad is happening. Let's get you out of there, Master Chief. And then you get out of there, and then they give you this, like, what do you call it? Like button sequence, so Master Chief, like, jumps from place to place. It's horrendous, right? It beats you over the head with, like, this is how you play the game. You're 3 years old. And this game, notably, does not do that. Not even a little bit. Like, these treasure chests, for example, that are in this first little tutorial dungeon, right? This is your first dungeon of the game. It's not like, there's not like a little pop-up that's like, treasure chests will appear during your adventure. You can open them to get loot. Did you know that? Like, it doesn't do that. Kind of that kind of, like, numbness in the tutorial is really absent, and instead it just lets you discover the mechanics on your own, and it just invites you to the game in a very kind of, like, interesting and open way. And I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of how they've done the tutorial. Like, this guy, this is our first boss. He just shows up. He's like, I'm gonna beat the crap out of you. And he does. There's no like in Diablo 3, if this was a Diablo 3 boss, he'd be like, hey, it's time to die, and he would come in like you know, like a WWE wrestler out of a center stage or something. You know, there'd be pyrotechnics, and, you know, there'd be a slow cutscene. No. In this game, he just drops out of the ceiling and the fight starts, and it's awesome.
No, I'm not necessarily against that, though. I'm a big fan of the WWE back in the day, so I'm not, you know, but I get what you're saying for sure. The thing I actually do like too is that you fight a boss really early. Like notice how early we ended up fighting, like, a boss already.
I think I think we're about 3 minutes in. Yeah.
Yeah, like, you know, it's not like an hour later where it's like, oh, first boss, right? Like, no, they throw you a boss, like, you know, very, very early.
I'm getting some like loading latency. We've been getting that a lot. Have you been experiencing that, Di?
Oh yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, so essentially, like, it's not that the game itself is lagging, although there have been some problems with that. I mean, it is a beta. We're gonna have to click on this guy's corpse here.
Yeah, there we go.
But yeah, specifically, I guess the game is, like, loading the world, so to speak, and we've seen some latency from that. The other big problem I've heard from various streamers, actually Seattle mentioned it, and she was running into this, where the game itself just has various memory leaks and problems centered around that as well. Have you encountered that at all? Has that, like, been messing up your OBS or other things on your computer, Di?
So the first couple of hours I played,
oh shoot, I'm going the wrong way.
D4, you know, it crashed and my OBS crashed at the same time. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Kind of sus.
Luckily, yeah, I've never ran into the issue again, but it was scary at first for sure. One more talking point too that I like too is that they actually now, you know, without, I was gonna say spoilers, but I'm pretty sure most people have already played or seen some stuff up to this point. But they throw you like the starting area. They throw you into a dark area. Like, this is like some of the darkest places that you would see, in Act 1 in general. So, like, you know, like, so it's, you know, there's very limited vision. So, like, you know, it really does give you that feeling of, I'm lost. I'm lost. It's cold. You know, what's really gonna happen? So, like, they really put a lot of thought into how they want you to perceive the beginning of the game. This is setting the tone of what the rest of the game is going to feel and look like by literally putting you in the most like grim scenario for environment as well. So I think that's a very smart move by Blizzard, given how in Diablo 3 we kind of started off in, well, pretty open and bright areas, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and to that point, when you this character that we just blitzed past, Lorath, when you meet him, the way he's introduced, just like the cinematography, it's very it's very horror-esque, right? They're not like, hey, do you remember Deckard Cain? That guy that you already know? Like, they don't do that. They really treat Lorath as like a new character, and frankly, like, even for people who've played Diablo 3, he is a new character. I mean, they've effectively, I'm not gonna say they're retconning, but they're kind of retconning this, the kind of the idea of, what the Horadrim were like kind of supposed to be and all that, and now it's this very different kind of like desperation of survival, right? You get that vibe. The vibe check here is very, very good in terms of story. We got to burn our prayers. We got to write some scribbles onto a piece of paper.
Now I forgot. Do we both have to do it, or does just one person in the party have to do it?
I don't know. Last time we tried to do this as a party, the queue was top of mind. So yeah, at the beginning of the beta, there were a lot of server stability issues. So we were just trying to, play the game at all. At that
click
point
as many buttons as we can.
Yeah. game work? Question mark? Was more of what was top of mind there. Alright, so I've unlocked a waypoint. You talk to the blacksmith, and then you buy Lorath's pole arm, and then the hard part is that on the table is the Horadrim, the amulet of the Horadrim, the symbol of the Horadrim. It's called Strange Amulet, but that anybody who has played Diablo knows that symbol means the Horadrim.
Yeah, the lighting in the fire, like the fire amulets, and like the lighting when you get to the city, looks so comforting. Like you make it here, and you're just like, oh, there's people. Thank God. Things might be okay. Like it feels good once you reach the city.
Right, I'm gonna pick up some XP elixirs here. Let's go salt.
Let's see, that is the...
Then I believe I have a few obols that I can try to gamble. Gamble for arms. Gloves. Oh, well, I guess I got no... I guess we're too low level to get legendaries at this point. I would not recommend doing that. What I just did. That's a bad idea. Okay, well, let's go to Mallwood. Like I said, we're gonna attempt a speed run here, but they're really, the meta for this game is so fundamentally flexible right now. I think people are still discovering certain strats and things. Like, obviously we're playing Sorc here because we believe this to be pretty fast with Hydra, but there's certainly other strategies that just nobody's really discovered yet. I mean, people aren't even doing basic things like in the official like Diablo 3 speedrun, you do like tele-hopping a lot, right? I don't know if you ever saw the like world record Diablo 3 speedruns die.
No, I haven't.
They're really interesting. They actually got on Awesome Games Done Quick 2 years ago now. So, yeah, Diablo was even featured on AGDQ once, which is pretty cool. But yeah, it's certainly not a like top of mind speedrun game like Super Mario 64 or something like that.
I just got caught up in the thing. They ambushed me. had to break out.
All right, I'm picking up the waypoint here at Margrave. Can I talk to this guy? Yeah, there we go. And I'm just gonna pick up these quests because they're easy XP. And then we'll go to Mallwood and start smashing levels. It's really easy to kind of misclick on a lot of things, I'm noticing, now that I'm trying to go fast. There's a lot of little fiddly elements. And I kind of think that's a good thing. There's a lot of elements all over the place. Not that it's a good thing that I'm misclicking, but it's a good thing that the game isn't like, you know, Diablo 3 or even Diablo 2, where it's simplified to the point of, you know, just being maybe a little bit too simple. Like you can only equip 2 skills at a time, or you can't rebind left click because the game developers think that that's a bad idea or whatever. I did pick up a coffee before we started, so I should be good to go. Regardless of the insane content schedule, how has your content been going, Dive? I've been extremely busy this weekend. You said you played for 30 hours already.
Yeah, roughly 30 hours. Yeah, 35 hours roughly. I think I've streamed the majority of it. Yeah, I think the first day I was like 17 hours of a stream. Second day was 12. So yeah, I've been blasting a lot. I haven't actually made any YouTube content yet, like any YouTube videos or anything.
Yeah, we were talking about it last night, and you said that, you know, like this is the content creator curse, right? You're like, I have an aspiration, right? I want to do this thing, and then you look at the time and you're like, oh, I should probably sleep. It's 4 a.m. in the morning. Like,
yeah, because like it's one of those things where, of course, like I mean, you and I are in the same boat, right? You know, where we have, you know, like we do a lot of content, but we also have like full-time jobs outside of content creation. So, you know, you have to kind of think about that, you know, and I guess this weekend, you know, time gets away from you where you're just having so much fun playing that you're just like, oh, I probably should have reserved some time to, you know, video making as well as streaming, right? And, you know, have to take a backseat somewhere, or something has to take a backseat somewhere.
you mean you haven't made 30 videos on YouTube already, Di? Like, oh my God, you're failing as a content creator. You know?
If only, man.
That's like what your brain is like telling you that, but you're like, okay, that's obviously not real news. That's fake news.
Oh yeah, and every thumbnail is like, you know, a different like angle of my pog face kind of thing, right? You know.
You know, I'm getting a little bit off topic here, but we'll bring it back to Diablo in 1 second. I've been watching a lot of Artosis casts again. We both got started in StarCraft 2 back in the day, but he's doing StarCraft 1 content, and he literally has, I don't know, like 10 cropped images of his face, and he just reuses them over and over and over again. And he just literally copy pastes them on every single thumbnail. It's hilarious.
I mean, it works. It absolutely works. You know, I mean, it's his
I find myself
style.
doing
that sometimes too. Yeah, but I think I find myself doing it because I'm you know, definitely a bit more of an amateur. So it's like, you know, I just need to.
Okay, so we just opened that resplendent chest, and okay, we should talk about this. So every chest, every resplendent chest that you open, every shrine that you get, and health pools as well, they all can be cursed. Like, they all have a small chance to be cursed. And so I opened that resplendent chest and I was like, where's the bad guy? Oh, it's actually not a cursed one. Like, oh man. I had just gotten used to them being cursed all the time. And I think that might have been one, if not second time that it hasn't been cursed. If you haven't picked up teleport, you should next level.
It's just over here, but curse.
Oh, nice.
Or not curse, but like
Yeah,
guarded, I guess you could say.
This is cursed.
Okay.
I would say this is cursed. Although no, you're right. There are actually two different versions of the resplendent chest. There's the cursed resplendent chest, the cursed chest, which just spawns a ton of enemies like Diablo 3 style with that kind of cursed chest. And then there's one that just has like one big mob, like the chest guardian. I guess what I want to point out about that is that the beautiful thing, and this is kind of like what I've been saying is that the game is like Diablo 1, in the sense that you get a shrine or you get a chest, and you don't know if it's cursed beforehand, right? Like in Diablo 3, we know where every single cursed chest spawn is in the game, and we can like optimize for those if we so choose. There are better strategies these days, but you know, we know that they're going to be cursed ahead of time, and so you just hover your mouse over it and you're like, oh, that's a cursed chest. Maybe I don't want to open that, or maybe I do want to open that because I'm trying to min-max XP or whatever. In this game, you can't do that. You have to, like, every chest that you open is a risk, one way or the other. Either you want the cursed chest and for the XP, and it's not a cursed chest, or you don't want the cursed chest, and oops, you're playing on hardcore, and your character is going to die now because you opened a cursed chest. So that's the dungeon complete. I need a blacksmith, so I'm gonna do that.
Okay.
And then
Same.
I don't think we need to salvage every time, but I just have so much crap that I've picked up from the tutorial. And then I think I hit reset dungeon. And then that will teleport us to the dungeon. Oh. When you're ready.
Yeah, I hit us up. Where is
Oh, okay.
core skills?
So if I teleport back to the inside of the dungeon, will that teleport me to the outside of the dungeon? Let's see how this works. Actually, haven't tried this yet. Oh, it teleports me back to the inside of the start of the next dungeon.
Nice.
Oh, wow, that's fast. Because when you hit reset dungeon normally, it teleports you outside the dungeon, then you have to hit another load screen. So you hit a load screen, then you hit a load screen. Well, I guess if you go to Kyovashad, then you're hitting 2 load screens anyway, so it's not faster really. But I think you just bite it and hit a load screen. Oh my gosh, this is like so fast. I know the first 10 levels are hilariously fast, but still. Trying to put my skill point in while I'm getting wrecked over here. Oh, there's the cursed chest. Okay, so this is, by the way, this is why I picked Mallwood for our leveling dungeon. Is it has a lot of these cursed chests, or it has, I guess, a higher chance for them than I think other dungeons do. And they're very good XP. They're excellent. So it just spawns in mob wave after mob wave. You don't got to go anywhere. The mobs come to you. It's like DoorDash for XP.
I will say that playing the source, man, like some of the effects, just the way the skills look really really cool. Even just how like chain lightning, you know, how the mobs like, you know, spark for a bit when you touch them, and even the burning effect looks like really really cool.
I wonder
Like
if
it's not overdone. Like it's not like in your face like it was in like Diablo 3, but it's detailed enough to where it's like, hey, that's actually pretty cool without looking, you know, overly like bright. Which I know that's, you know, been a lot of people's worry coming into Diablo 4 from the previous games.
I would love to talk to some of the artists and the like effects artists about that very topic at like a BlizzCon. I know we haven't had BlizzCon announced this year, but people are anticipating that there will be BlizzCon this year, because that's the kind of thing that they would talk to you about, and namely one of the things I kind of am curious about is we do know that some of the folks that worked on Resurrected also are working on this game. So I wonder if some of the lessons that they learned from the effects from that game are translating over to this game. Because chain lightning, for example, you know, that's a Diablo 2 skill. And the chain lightning in this game looks, from an FX perspective, pretty similar to how it looks in Resurrected. So I gotta wonder if like it's the same guy, or maybe even they like reused like some of the lessons learned, that sort of thing. Obviously it's like new engine and all that kind of stuff, but oh, here we go. We can get this shrine. So we've got this defaced shrine cap that we can pick up, and then we can put on the shrine base. This is kind of a new thing. And then you know, the shrine can still be then cursed. So you're like, you know, it's this excitement is sort of like re-injected back into the shrines when they all can be cursed. You know, every time you're like, is it going to be cursed? Is it not going to be cursed? You actually don't know. And it's always a joy to discover. I feel like Marie Kondo, right? The Marie Kondo of shrines. You know, the joy of shrines. So yeah, we were talking about how Rogue's skills were very subtle in comparison to like these giant arcs of electricity for the Sorcerer. What do you think about that? Do you think it's like, do you think they should be amped up, or do you like that they're subtle?
Initially, I didn't like it because there's, especially kind of when you're leveling up, you know, some of the excitement to really get you started is to like make your character look and feel strong, or I'm saying not strong, but like, you know, give you a sense of like, okay, I'm doing something, right? And so like on a rogue, before you get your imbues, all of your skills look very, very realistic. Like an arrow looks like an arrow. When you got your daggers and you're stabbing enemies, like it looks like you're kind of just stabbing them, right? And like
you look like John, you look like John Ranger from, you know, whatever D&D video game happened to come out that year.
Right. And so like, you know, so because there's no like, you know, elemental effects or anything, there's a lot of realism in the attack itself, and it makes you feel like you're not doing much initially, but it makes sense. It makes sense to the archetype of the character, right? You know, where a lot of things are swift and subtle. You know, you're not as a rogue where you kind of really want to be hidden. You know, you don't always want to be seen. You know, so like if you have a skill that, you know, explodes and everything, it's like, hey, look at me. You know, you just blow up an entire area. That doesn't fit the rogue archetype at all. So I think for me, I had to kind of realize that. and realized, okay, it makes sense. It makes sense. And I guess when I thought about it, I was like, I'm actually okay with that. But initially, yeah, I mean, I guess it's because, you know, being used to, you know, Diablo 3 and, you know, playing Demon Hunter, you know, there was a bit more flash. So, but it makes sense though. It makes sense, you know, like you want to strike swiftly, kill them without, you know, leaving a trace. And that's kind of what the rogue does, right?
And the Demon Hunter is nothing if not flashy. Yeah. I really like the rogue's abilities and how, at least at the beginning of the game, how sort of like basic they are. I guess basic would be the word. Because it leaves design space for your character to grow and for Blizzard to add more later, right? So like if right now, you know, you start your character and you do, I don't know, puncture, and you fling a few daggers or whatever, and it just looks like you flung a few daggers, then that leaves all this space in the game for, you know, you to get some kind of item that increases how awesome it is, and it adds another effect. I think this is really evident, and maybe, and I was really thinking about this, maybe one reason, and this is different from Rogue, from like any other class, one reason they did this was because of all the imbues, right? The imbues are really important for the class. Like I feel like the imbues are almost the central kind of theme of the whole class, and which imbue you choose really kind of determines which style of rogue you're going to play.
Oh yeah, yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. Very rarely do I ever think I would want to make a like physical rogue, right? I found a crossbow.
Nice. Yeah, that is notable in that like you can't equip as a sorcerer. You can't equip a crossbow. This is a thing that like you can do. I mean, there are some. Where are we going? Oh, there are some limitations in D3, but in general, you can just kind of like. A weapon is a big old stat stick, you know, in D3. In this game, it feels a little bit different. Like, there's actually a reason why you'd equip a one-hander versus a two-hander versus, you know, using your swords or whatever you have for your particular class, right?
Dungeon complete.
All right, reset. This should just kick us out. I need to take this jacket off. It's warm in here, man. We had a.
That's just my fire skills. Don't worry.
They're just dropping the fire here. All right, back in.
All right, jumping back in.
Whew.
So, like, what do you think of the sound design?
Oh my
Let's talk
God,
about the visuals. What do you think of the sound design?
Not only do I think the sound design is amazing, but so two of my RL friends are video game sound designers, and I talk to them about sound design all the time. So they have a very technical understanding of sound design, and I've wanted to get this game in front of them, like just so that they can, so we can nerd out about the sound design, because I am not a video game sound design guy, but they have just, I don't know, I've learned a lot from them, just like how they think about sound design. And what I'll say is a couple things. So first of all, it's really, really important how items get treated in a Diablo game, right? Like when you pick up an item, when an item drops on the ground, when you equip it, all of these are like events that happen in video games all the time, but only in a Diablo game does all of those things have a very unique, distinct sound that's really super important to sort of the nature of the game itself, right? Like, if I ask somebody who's played a lot of Diablo 2 what a amulet sounds like when it drops on the ground, they could probably just like make the sound with their mouth, right? It's that iconic. Just the
Sure.
sound, not the, not like some famous person's voice line or anything. The sound of the amulet dropping on the ground is like almost a character in the game itself. So getting that right in a Diablo game is critical. It's like one of the very first things that has to happen for the game to be successful, I think. Right? So like when you open a chest, it has to make that correct Pavlovian response, creaking sound, or else you have failed and the game is not going to be it's not going to be a good game, right? Like, it's that important that the sound design be like on point. And it's more than just be not annoying, because that's a really important thing. Like, if you ever want to hear like annoying sound design, right? Go play like Warcraft 2 and try to put a building down where you can't place a building. Like if you have like trees in the way or something like that.
I remember that sound. Yes.
It just like quacks at you, right? It's like it's like this like really harsh, terrible air sound. And to give Warcraft 2 credit, like every single other building has like some unique sound that they put a lot of thought into, so they must have just like run out of time before they shipped the game or something. But
yeah, they just kind of just recorded a Windows era sound and just said, you know what, we're gonna just stick this here. Sure. But yeah,
all that,
I distinctly remember that game for sure. Yeah.
All that said, Diablo 4's sound design is completely on point. Now we have noticed, like to get really picky, we have noticed a couple of things that are maybe like a little bit beta. So like we were talking about shadow imbue, and how like if you shadow imbue, piercing shot, if you listen in headphones, then the sound it makes is just like really loud. It's like if you dropped a giant heavy metal crate in a concrete factory. It's like goong, It's like okay, that's a little much. That's very loud, right?
Yeah, it is, and it kind of echoes for a bit too. But I think I knew what I mean, and this is beta, so of course there's definitely some tuning there, right? But I think I know what they were trying to go for, or at least what it feels like to me. And it's like when you use the other rogue skills, they're not again, like it's very like focused, because rogue is trying to take you out as fast as possible without again leaving much of a trace. Like that's kind of the point. And like the shadow imbue is really the only thing I think on rogue, outside of like let's say death trap, I think is also really notable too as well. But the shadow imbue is like the only thing that really has that like impact that you feel, like the blast mechanic that isn't anything like any other skill in the rogue tree at all. So I think they were trying to give you that, whereas like hey, are you looking for that? Well, we can give it to you with this particular imbue. And so like I think they really made it sound as powerful as it looks and as it is. And definitely overtuned it in terms of the in terms of the gain, the gain or the volume itself, but the sound is there. Like when you use it, it feels, it sounds as great as it feels, right? But and then there's also some sound effects too as well, where like you could tell they kind of reused a couple of things because it is kind of beta, so they probably just kind of just either
Right.
reuse some sound effects or even pull from previous games where it's like, okay, that's definitely not new.
It's Hydra
Right?
time.
But Hydra time, all right. This
is like the key level. Wait, did we finish it? No, light the. Oh yes, we finished it. Right. Set.
But yeah, man, that and the audio, like just like the music.
Oh man, I could talk.
I can go on and on about
the music.
About the music. Yes.
Let's talk about the music. I do want to hit the purveyor of curiosity to see if I can get a Hydra thing. Just gonna go to Kyo Shed real quick.
I'll follow you. I'll just get and salvage most of the stuff here.
Load faster.
Oh, I forgot to pick up that waypoint. That's good.
Gloves. Not what I wanted, but it is legendary. Becoming injured while crowd control grants you unstoppable. Oh, that's actually good. I won't die now. It's like a great hardcore legendary power to get early on. Alright. Now we're about to pop off.
I didn't get lucky either. I got the when you hit with a crowd control enemy, there's up to a 44% chance that a crowd control effect to spread to another unaffected enemy. I find that a lot actually on my road.
I don't want to just steal my other Sork's gear either. I want to kind of keep a little bit true to the nature of the run here, because I guess yeah, I do want to talk about music, but I guess one of the reasons I wanted to do this here is a lot of people want to play this next weekend to get the Wolf Pup pet. I know it feels like the entire planet has been playing Diablo 4 this weekend. However, there's going to be even more people playing this next weekend. Like, just think about how many people will play a game that's been hyped to absolute mad levels when it's also free and you don't have to order a KFC chicken sandwich to get in. But anyway, the music in this game is very, very good. Very, and notably so, because I mean, between me and you, Di, we've played a lot of ARPGs, even games that kind of like break the ARPG mold quite a bit, like something like Lost Ark, or like just pure MMOs like Final Fantasy 14 or WoW or whatever. But in the ARPG scene, there are 0 soundtracks that are better than the Diablo 2 soundtrack. I think that's I think that's an unequivocal fact that most people would agree with, right? It's just a completely not really flawless soundtrack, but completely timeless in how it's able to accomplish what it's able to accomplish, and getting done what's able to get done in ARPGs. And every single other ARPG game that I've played just hasn't really even entered that same realm of like, wow, this has a legendary soundtrack. There's maybe a few tracks here and there, right? Like Diablo 3's soundtrack, it has its high points, like Leah, I think, for example, is a really, really great track from the Diablo 3 soundtrack. That was composed, by the way, by the same guy who did the like famous Grizzly Hills track from World of Warcraft that everybody just goes on and on and on about. It's the same guy. So,
Interesting. I actually did not know that.
but a lot of the rest of the soundtrack sounds like it could belong to sort of like any generic Hollywood horror film or just any sort of like video game music. You know,
Well, let's talk about that actually for a second, because this is kind of an area of specialty for me, because for those who don't know, I actually teach music for a living. So I teach, at a high school, and I went to school for music, and I've done sound design, and do indoor percussion competitions, where I had to design an entire show, myself, the music, the drill, the show concept, etc., and make it all fit and compete, nationally against other groups for my students. And the one thing I will say that I think sometimes gets overlooked when it comes to music is what are you doing on the screen? What are you doing on the screen that relates to what you hear, right? So one of the things that I think when people say, oh, well, I don't remember, or I don't really like D3's, music, right? Or sound design. And it's a lot of it really, honestly, isn't really the music, but more so what you see. If you just listen to the soundtracks, by itself, there's enough, kind of dark ambience there, right? But what you see visually, the art style is very portrait, kind of colorful. It's not, what you see isn't, doesn't really mesh with what you hear.
Yeah.
So you automatically don't, a lot of times don't remember the tracks as well, because you're so big, because your mind is not putting the two and two together. It's you so it doesn't really become memorable. Whereas in Diablo 2, where a lot of music there, was very fitting to what you saw going on. And when you don't have that connection, then you lose. You lose what's good musically, because it just doesn't fit. It doesn't fit the visuals. It doesn't fit, the environment there. I think the only time where it actually kind of does a little bit would be Act 2.
I was about to say Act 2. Yeah.
Yeah, Act 2. Because I could see when I think about Act 2 now, when I hear the music and just the ambiance of wind and the track and stuff like that, I remember that because it matches the environment. But you don't get that sense of feel throughout the entire game. Just very, very small portions of it, right? They did it for Diablo 4. They did a really good job, lining that up everywhere, everything you feel, even being in town. I love the town music, man, and it's just it's memorable.
And
it's
again, I'm not a video game sound designer or composer, but I have one that's a friend of mine, and so I'm parroting sort of his thoughts here. When we've talked about this subject on other occasions, there's really two kinds of soundtracks that you can do for video games, and Diablo 2 and 3 have very different, distinct kinds of soundtracks, right? Diablo 2's soundtrack is very sort of front of mind, right? It's front in the speakers, and it's front in your head. A good example of another soundtrack that's like that is Celeste, for example. If you've heard Celeste's soundtrack, right?
Yes.
It has theming. It is the theme. The themes of the game are in the soundtrack. You don't even have to play the game, and you would understand exactly kind of what the game is kind of about, the difficulties you're going to have to overcome, the challenges that it presents. It's there. It's all present in the music. Whereas, and that's what Diablo 2's soundtrack is like, right? The theming is very front of mind. It's front in the track. And in Diablo 3, it's very much the opposite. It's the other kind of video game soundtrack that we get a lot, which is very sort of like cinematic in nature, and the idea or the thought process behind designing a soundtrack like that is very background, right? Where it's supposed to be, you know, just sort of like background music. It's not supposed to be as important to the game as, say, like the gameplay is itself. And I would say that, you know, based on just our discussion here on how important the sound design is to Diablo, like we were talking about the sound of the amulet dropping on the ground, that the music for Diablo has a very similar place, in that it needs to, maybe not all the time, but there needs to be a lot more of the soundtrack sort of like front and center in the player's head when you're doing certain activities, right? Good example, and what I think Diablo 4 does so flawlessly, that's actually really, really fantastic, is they kind of blend the two theme styles of soundtracks together really, really well, right? So you hop in a place like Kjovashad, or you hop in a place like Yelesna, or even just like the mine near Yelesna, and the game gives you this very front of mind theming, and you're like, ah, yes, I'm at this place in the world. It has this music, and this is the vibe, this is the feel of this place. And the theming is present in the music. Even if you didn't have the game on and you were just listening to the soundtrack, you would kind of understand from a vibe perspective what the game is trying to tell you, right? The feeling it's trying to convey and all that kind of stuff. Whereas kind of the soundtrack that's going on right now, because we're kind of just in this, you know, somewhat generic dungeon area, is a lot more background. And so they really masterfully weave between those two kind of things, and they know when to put it in the background, they know when to put it in the foreground of your head. And I think that's actually really, really hard to do. It's really impressive to me what they've done with the soundtrack. Actually, one of the things
you gotta be conscious of that too, right? When you're designing that, it's easier to forget. like when you're composing, you know, this kind of stuff like this, you know, you have to kind of, because it's a whole different stylistic approach. So like, you know, you have to be like aware as you're doing it, right? And he's like, oh, well, this sounds cool, and it's like, oh, this is town. I need it to be this, right? And you know, I've done that as a musician before. For several pieces, or when I've had to, you know, write for my programs. Oh, I got a legendary stat.
Nice.
But yeah, I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you on that.
All that to say that, and I've said this several times, but I'll say it again. The Diablo 4 soundtrack's better than the Diablo 2 soundtrack, full stop. It's just straight up better. From like every aspect of how it's done. I wanted to switch gears a little bit and talk about the skill tree, because this has been a big topic since, you know, they revealed the game. Back at BlizzCon, was oh, the skill tree, what are they going to do with the skill tree? Oh, that looks, I think the first iteration we saw was just sort of this very like World of Warcraft-esque style linear, like you pick this skill, then you get this skill, then you get this skill, and people are like, well, that's dumb. So then they
fun fact, actually, fun fact, sorry, segue that. Fun fact,
yeah,
Diablo 2's skill tree, I don't know if most people know, it was ripped directly from StarCraft. Like if you look at
wait,
yeah,
really?
Yeah, it was ripped directly from StarCraft. Like if you look at like the like just the tech paths of Zerg, Terran, and Protoss, they legit like copy and paste. They ripped directly from StarCraft. It's actually nuts when you like when I found that out. I went back. I'm like, no way, right? And then I looked over.
I kind of want to go look at it now. Yeah,
you gotta look at it. They literally ripped it from StarCraft. So the origin of D2's skill tree is actually from StarCraft. So, anyways, yeah. So that was just an interesting fact that tidbit I'm gonna throw out there.
Yeah, I guess one of the things about Diablo 2's skill tree, because everyone says that it's this master class in how to do a video game skill tree, which I don't think is true, but one of the problems of it is that you pick a skill and then you have to select the next skill in the tree in a linear fashion. And if you don't invest in the right first skill at level 1, you have failed and you need to respec everything, right? So essentially, in order to make a character worth anything, you have to plan your character out at level 1. And how can you possibly plan your character out at level 1 if you haven't played the game, right? So it leads to this complex understanding of the game for people who are veterans. And if you're a veteran of the game, yeah, maybe you really like that. But new players are just like, oh, what am I supposed to do? What do I pick? This is dumb. It feels complex, and there's a lot of choice. You don't know where to go. Like at first, like you feel like you have to go take a class. You know, with you're level 1. Now you're level 2. Okay, hold on. Let me take a class. There's a lot of complexity here. I gotta read the whole skill tree to understand where I want to go before I even start playing the game. You know, it's a lot. It's a whole lot. It's a big problem. And I think a lot of games have tried to solve it. That I don't think, at least in terms of ARPGs, I don't think anybody really has until Diablo 4. Like this skill tree system, on the face of it, you're like, well, that's very simplistic and that looks dumb, right? Like I think it's very easy to take that opinion, but then you really start looking at what they did with it. And you know, just to describe it real quick for those who are maybe unfamiliar, you have these. You start off, you know, level 2. You get your first skill point, and you only have to make a choice between 4 different skills, and they're very thematic in nature too, right? So you don't even they take the paradox of choice, the whole like the entire skill tree kind of thing, and they reduce it down to 4 choices. And what's really key here is that the choices that you make later in the tree are not predicated based on that first choice that you made, right? So if you take Firebolt at level 2, you aren't restricted from taking cold skills later on and investing heavily in, I don't know, let's say Frost Orb later down the tree. You can stay and have Firebolt and Cold Orb, and both can be very good simultaneously. And what's great about that is that the decision and the complexity of you learning the game is not all up front, and you can be confident in your choices and you can be happy about your character without feeling like you're not playing the game correctly, right?
Yeah, that's very important. Very, very important. One thing I like about too the skill tree itself, because I actually took the initial approach too, like coming from, you know, realistically, you know, the illusion of choice, choices that, you know, Diablo 3 had, when they introduced sets, right? You got here, there appears to be like less like skills to use. initially, like comparatively speaking, like the choices look like there's less on the skill tree, and then you kind of put some points into the skill and then the passive, and then you kind of build around the skill. What what's kind of not shown on the front is your class's quote unquote specialization, right? So like when you, for example, on a road, you have like your 5 core skills basically, but how you play those 5 core skills goes beyond what skill points you put into the skills. The specialization changes entirely how you would play any of those 5 core skills. So like you go from playing any of those core skills to playing a completely different because you chose the specialization, or then you went to a different specialization, and then now you play that even more different, right? Like it's more complex than meets the eye for sure. But they made it simple enough to where it's not overwhelming at the same time, right?
Yeah,
it's not
the complexity. The complexity gets very digestible at each point.
It's a very good word for it. Yes,
of the game, right? So as you level up, every time you level up, there is an actual choice for you to make, and a deepened understanding of the game that you're going to gain. You're going to go, oh yeah. So now that I'm here, maybe I want to do this, or maybe I want to do that. And notably, they take a lot of the passive skills and they put them towards the end of the tree. And that's because the passive skills do have this sort of effect where you do need to have like more of a solid understanding of like how all the skills kind of relate to each other. So like, for example, you'll have a passive that's like, for the sorcerer, pyromancy, right? Where it's like all of your pyromancy skills do 3% more damage or something like that, right? Pretty basic kind of passive design, but they, instead of putting it towards the beginning of the tree, it's at the end of the tree, such that, okay, now that you've played around with a lot of the skills and you're a couple of hours in the game or something like that, now you can make like a wiser decision about, okay, I do want to play a fire sword. I do want to take this pyromancy skill. And now maybe I want to despecialize out of this other skill that I took at level 1. That, by the way, I haven't felt bad about at this point. But it's very easy to go back and refund those points, swap it over to Firebolt, and now take pyromancy. And now that's also a correct choice. So it's not like you ever made an incorrect choice, and you never feel bad about it. It's fantastic. It's just really well thought out how everything's been put together. I think I do need to sell off your die.
Yeah, I'm about to do the same. Just equip some stuff. Oh, I didn't even have a ring equipped this entire time.
I don't think I've equipped rings either. I don't think I've found any rings. That's the problem.
Like the music here is so good.
Yeah, the Kyovashad.
Like I would get off. Yeah, like when I like log off, like if I'm in this town and like I log off, like I'm like humming this music around my apartment.
One of the things I desperately want to do is get a soundtrack of Diablo 4, and I don't think they're gonna release like a standalone soundtrack, at least for, I don't know, a while. So I might have to like go in and record various bits of the soundtrack myself and kind of handcraft it. Which is always interesting because the music as it's presented in the game, like in the game engine, is always like very different than what like a full master of a soundtrack would be, right?
Right.
There's a lot that goes into mastering a soundtrack for that kind of distribution, as opposed to just like getting it from the game itself. I think from the from the casual Andy, I wear my $100 SteelSeries headphones kind of perspective, it's more or less the same. But I think typically musicians, when they look at a production like that, they want something that's a little bit more timeless, that can be used anywhere, that's like mixed correctly, and all those sorts of things. So it might be more difficult for us to get a like actual soundtrack version of the soundtrack as opposed to what's in the game. And as far as I know, we're not going to get one at launch, but I'm willing to be surprised. So we're level, 14? And we're an hour in. So how are you feeling about Sorc?
Fun. Definitely fun. It's strong. Early game for sure. Definitely really strong. But I mean, I like it. Like I tend to like to play at a distance, like ranged anything. That's always kind of been my MMO. Any game that I've generally have played has always been, don't like to be touched. I guess that's always been my philosophy. Like if I can do something or play a class where I don't have to get touched, whether that is just being clever with, in this case scenario, like, stutter step mechanics or dodging and stuff like that. Like, I'd prefer that, right? Not to say there's anything wrong with, playing a melee class. I like to finesse, right? And so like, I feel like sometimes when you're playing, a class that's designed to be melee, like you don't get as much of that finesse that you do playing at a distance. And, that's a preference, right? Some people like to jump in and, tank damage and just like, knock people's heads off with hammers and things. And that actually sounds cool. If I can do that without getting touched, I'd totally do that, right? but that's unrealistic, right? But yeah, I really do like the Source a lot. I was actually excited to make one and say, you know what? Let's do it.
Oh, Treasure Goblin? Yeah, I think what's really interesting is... this is a generalization, but the thing that I noticed the most about melee classes and their top builds, whether it's for PoE or D3 or whatever, their top, the build does a few things. The first thing that it does is it takes the melee class and it stops it from being a melee class. It's the very first thing that happens in a build, right? So like, I don't know. There's like, Barbarian, for example. In this game, there is a skill called Upheaval. And Upheaval is not really a skill that you have to be right next to the enemy to cast. You can be... I mean, it's not like a super ranged skill, like I can stand all the way across the screen and cast Chain Lightning. I don't even have to be on the same screen, and my Hydras will attack and kill stuff. But I can be a quarter of the screen away. So all of a sudden, my quote unquote melee class isn't even really a melee class anymore. So I think any melee build that wants to be successful in any ARPG, whether it's Diablo 4 or PoE or Last Epoch, whatever it is, that's actually probably the very first thing that they do is they go, okay, how do I not make this a melee class? Because, to your point, right? Like, the skill cap is going to be a lot higher on someone who can sit there and click and dodge all the damage on the screen and that player is going to be able to push harder and push higher, kill more difficult monsters and enemies, and they're going to be able to build their build more glass cannony and
exactly
all those sorts of like feedback loops. You get those just for free, just for picking a ranged skill, right? So it's almost like the problem. So I hear a lot of people having, they're like, oh, I'm underwhelmed with Barbarian. I'm bummed out about that. I want Barbarian to be awesome. And Rogue seems really good, and then Sorcerer seems because Hydra needs to be tuned, and it's a little too strong. But
for the effort required, yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I wonder if people would have a better time if Upheaval, if there were more skills like Upheaval available for the Barbarian, because there's like Upheaval, and then Hammer of the Ancients gives you a little bit of range. And then there's some legendaries that like let you earthquake things. So if like Ground Stomp will like give you a little earthquake thing, and a few other things like that. But like you do Whirlwind, or you do like a Rend or something. You are in melee range. Like your weapon is attacking the very face of the monster. So in order to do that, you have to be willing to take tons of damage, and sometimes it just feels impossible because like you can't dodge when you're in melee. In fact, I heard I forget who it was. I don't know if it was you or if it was another MAXROLL team member, but someone said that the beta feels very anti-melee right now. Like this,
I can see that.
Just as I said it, this tree next to me swung towards me, and I just clicked two footsteps away, and you didn't hit me. Right? It was totally fine. But if I was Barbarian, I'm getting hit because that's how I do my damage. Otherwise,
yeah, I do think that some of the more better sustained stuff probably comes in later in the leveling, right? I think that sustainabilities and even sustained legendaries are just not quite there. However, I will say, on Rogue, you can, pick a basic attack that does, and also a core skill that actually does really well for sustain, where you can literally sit in the middle of a pack and just blast, right? But haven't really played Barb at all this beta, so I don't know if they have anything like that. But the Rogue can legit kind of sit there and DPS down, which is kind of weird considering if a Barb has trouble with it, but the Rogue is like, yeah, no problem, I can just tank all this if I wanted to. But to your point though, I think it is kind of important, which is why spin the wind builds have always been kind of like nice, because you can kind of be mobile and do damage at the same time, so you can kind of swoop in and out usually.
That's a great way to describe it. Swooping.
Yeah. Right.
I almost imagine the guy from Assassin's Creed coming in and being like, yeah. That's a fantastic way to describe kind of like how melee at a high skill level tends to dodge damage entirely. It's like they swoop around the battlefield, and it's not that they're necessarily like dodging the damage or like they're just anticipating it and having like really good positioning. It's almost like playing Terran in StarCraft 2 and moving siege tanks, right? You're just like, well, do I siege up here? Oh, I bet it's okay. I know it's time to move him forward. Let's unsiege. Uh-oh, he's dropping zealot bombs. I'm gonna die.
Yeah. I look at it like that, almost more like the Monster Hunter World series, right? Like or the World, but like the Monster Hunter series, right? Where like like in that game, like I actually prefer. I didn't play range at all, which is kind of crazy actually, but I did play like dual blades, so I always got picked on for that. But I like the sound, so I did it. But yeah, I mean, but being able to know the attacks and kind of go in and out of things, and like being able to anticipate goes a long way, right? And so like a skill like again, whirlwind kind of makes that easy for, like, let's say newcomers or those who may not have a lot of time to spend in the game. You kind of get both at the same time, right? You don't have to like click, or you don't have to think about, do I attack now or do I move now? Whereas with spin the wind has always been, I can do both at the same time, right? So you kind of take one of the thought processes out of the equation and you just go. But I do think that you're right in that sense where when melee classes in general do need to have attacks where they kind of arc out a bit, so you're not necessarily having to be in the on top of the mob to actually deal damage. You can be within close range, right? Like there's melee range and then there's close range, I guess, right? Rogue actually has that too, where like and I have fun with it too. Like I don't have to necessarily be 50 yards away all the time as a rogue. Like with barrage, barrage can you could change the nature of how you want to attack in the battlefield. Do you want more single target damage? You have to kind of shotgun them up close with barrage, or do you want to try to spread out and get a bit more AoE, or you want to kind of attack from afar and position yourself like in the middle? So like for melee classes, I would like to see more close range, right? Like where you don't necessarily have to be on top of the mobs, but you do need to be close. That's your kind of like your class design-ish type, or that's what your class is strong at doing, right? But
sorry, I'm trying to equip something. There we go. Yeah, actually, I had a rogue question for you. So, one thing I did this morning, so one thing I'm doing for MAXROLL is recording with the best technology on the planet. The sort of our skillers, we're calling them our skillers, which are just like demos of all the skills of the game for all the classes, right? So I'm working on the skillers, and it's probably the first time I've actually tried some skills out. So I did have to like go to school a little bit. I'm like, wait a second, what is this? How does this work? And it was actually my first time using Twisting Blades at all. And so you had mentioned Twisting Blades as like one of the better rogue skills, and I found that really interesting after playing around with it. I was like, so how does this really work? There's also there's a sorcerer skill I want to talk about as well on this subject, but tell me a little bit more about Twisting Blades, because I played around with it and I got a good demo of the blades kind of like returning to me, but beyond that, like I'm still not quite certain, like when I hit level 25, like how is this going to be like a really good skill? Could you tell me a little bit more about that, Di?
So playing with Twisted Blades, either way, like you can do inner sight or a combo point. I think no one plays combo point in Twisted Blades except for me. but the idea is still the same. Like the playstyle is still very, very, very much similar. But the thing about Twisted Blades, and it's something that me and Moody both discussed a bit, because we both kind of ignored the skill initially during in-game beta. We were just like, this doesn't seem like it's gonna, like we try it out and we're just like, yeah, I don't see the appeal, kind of thing, and then we left it alone. I think Woody started messing with it before I did, in terms of like and Grave Death, and he's like, yo, DiEoxidE, did you know, if you do so and so that this happens? And I'm just like, nah, I didn't really put that together, initially. And it's one of those things where it's a skill where you kind of have to unlearn everything you thought you knew about doing damage, like or attacking or approaching the mobs, right? It's a very mobile type thing.
That's exactly why. That's exactly why I ask, because
it's one of those things where you you basically stab both daggers into a target, and upon doing so, you deal pretty decent damage. But most of your damage doesn't come from stabbing the target. It comes from when the blades when you retrieve the blades to you. So like when you stab a target, wherever you end up, a couple of seconds later, the blades retract all the way to you, and as it's happening, it deals damage in the line.
It's like a frisbee, yeah. Like it's like a frisbee that it starts out at melee range. So yeah, if the way frisbees worked in real life was you went up to like your aunt and you were like, "Hey aunt, catch," and then you ran up directly into her, like directly at her, and then you stabbed her with the frisbee. And then your aunt's like, "Ow, that hurts," and then you ran away as fast as you could, and then the frisbee came back to you. Then that's how twisting blades works, right?
Yeah. And it's one of those things where like you have to be on the move the entire time, so you can't stand still. And well, I mean, you can, but you're not getting the most out of the skill if you just kind of stand in place and just stab him with twisted blades. Like you have to, positioning is extremely important, which that is the case for Rogue in general. Rogue is a very positional based class, but twisted blades takes that to like, and turns it up to 11. It's like, well, how good are you actually at positioning, right? And so it really tests, tests that, for you, and like it really embodies what a Rogue really stands for. But like, yeah, but it's one of those things where you don't really initially know how to play the skill well until you unlearn how you would approach, like because usually like a lot of people like to go in Rambo styles. Like I see something, I click button, I try to kill it. Right, that's kind of normal, right? Where in this case scenario you go, oh, okay, where is the furthest target, right?
Yeah.
Of the pack. Now I'm going to shadow step behind the target, and then I'm going to stab it. And then when I stab it, I'm going to dash through everything, right? So I can get as far away as possible in a line and hit everything in that straight line, and you're rinsing and you're repeating that. And so your approach to battle is just entirely different, and like a lot of times you're not going to notice up front, which is why it took, Woody and I a while to figure out, okay, this is actually pretty good. And like, Woody figured it out faster than I did. Mainly because of the fact that I don't really like playing in melee range generally, but that skill though, oh, I will play that all day. Because I mean, I can jump in and out and we even still not get hit with it.
Yeah. That's so interesting because like, I was trying it out and I go in melee range and I'm like, okay, this skill sucks. Like, I attacked in melee range. I dealt some damage. Okay. But yeah, you're right. You have to, eventually I figured out, oh, they return to you. Okay, you gotta like do this like John Cena frisbee kind of like dash through all of them, group them up kind of thing. And then when you do that, then it gets really interesting. And I can see like, I mean, I haven't seen all the Rogue Legendaries. I know we're gonna make a big old spreadsheet for MAXROLL here before too long, for all the new legendaries we found from the beta here. But I can imagine that there's a legendary that's like, get more blades coming back to you, or your blades travel in a different arc, or like there's so many different ways that they could like, you could like modify that skill to make it do interesting things.
The current one we have right now is, it basically like once the blades return to you, it circles your character a couple of times.
Oh, that's a PoE thing. What skill is that? What skill is that? There's a really popular kind of like starter PoE build that does that. I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, that you cast this skill, the blades come back to you, and then they circle your character. Yeah, that's I wonder if the inspiration from that skill came from another game.
But yeah, it's just like it's one of those things where that particular legendary actually as an additional thing you have to think about. So not only are you thinking about, where you're going to impale, like, you see a group of mobs, who are you going to impale, right? Then once you do so, or you impale several mobs in that area, or you just impale the same one if you want to, like a couple of times before moving out. Where's your positioning when the blades return?
You know,
Right? Where
you just said something that I think was maybe subconscious, but I just had... I could be hallucinating here, right? But I have this idea in my head that when they started making Diablo 4 and they started making the Rogue, that they took some Diablo 3 skills from Demon Hunter and put them on the Rogue and went, okay, well, let's iterate on this and see what we can come up with, right? And it almost feels like to me that Twisting Blades kind of serves the same function as Impale. You get what I'm saying there?
Yeah, I can see that.
It's kind of like you throw a it's kind of like you throw a dagger. Imagine if the first iteration of this skill was you throw a dagger in a straight line. It does damage. Well, okay, that's cool, but that's also kind of boring, and not really what the Rogue is supposed to feel like. So you change the mechanics up a little bit, but you keep the idea the same, in that like you have these like returning frisbee blades that are going all over the place. But it's fundamentally kind of the same idea. I wonder if that's what happened or if I'm just hallucinating. But yeah, it does kind of fit the same role as Impale does. But it changes the gameplay. So instead of just having the infinite generator spender style builds that you get.
I'm sorry, invite me again. Sorry.
Oh, what happened?
I misclicked.
Oh no.
I'm bad at this game.
Bad at this game. I don't think anybody is good at this game yet. We're just all kind of dinking around.
But go on, I'm sorry.
But yeah, I do think it fills sort of that same design purpose, if you get what I'm saying there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like in other words, if you added Impale to this class, like you get it from Demon Hunter, you would go, oh, no, we already have Twisting Blades. We probably don't want that. Probably don't want Impale. You've got Twisting Blades now. Oh, yeah, another thing. So another criticism that I've heard a lot, which I think is, false news, fake news, whatever, is people saying that this game is, it's just Diablo 3, right? And I even had someone say, oh, well, it's the same exact core design as Diablo 3. You have a generator and you have a spender and everything is left click, right click. And I'm like, well, no, right? Like, in fact, I think the only class that really has like the traditional style of generators where you left click and you get resource is maybe Barbarian. Am I hallucinating that? Yeah, I think it's just Barbarian, because every single other class that has a basic, like every class has a basic skill hub and a core skill hub. And the basic skills don't give you resource for every class. If you take, like for Sorceress, for example, if you take Firebolt does not give you resource at all. It's filler damage. That's all it is. Is it helps you apply burning, like you apply burning to enemies. Now you can generate resource off of like Frostbolt, but it's not just like cast Frostbolt, get resource. That's not how it works. It's I believe, first of all, basic Frostbolt will give you no resource, right? If you cast Frostbolt, and I believe if you take the enhancement, and the enhancement allows you to gain resource when you cast Frostbolt and you hit an enemy that's chilled or frozen. If I'm correct, if I'm just like, I'm not looking at the skill at the moment, but if I remember correctly, that's how it works. So like now you're in this more interesting build scenario where in order for your quote-unquote generator to even function at all, you have to build Cold Sork. You have to build in some skills that are going to give you some way of chilling or freezing the enemy in some fashion.
Yeah, it's more utility versus a necessity for a lot of for some builds. Like I mean, and so like like and what I mean by like necessity is like oh well I'm out of resource. I have to hit this basic button to get my resources back. It's far beyond that. I find myself oftentimes changing my basic attack a lot based on what I'm doing because maybe like for instance when I'm doing barrage on road, I tend to use forceful arrow more than the others.
I love forceful
arrow. Mainly because like every third hit applies as vulnerable, and like as a rogue early game is you don't really have many options to apply a vulnerable in general. But also on barrage, I can ricochet. My initial arrow ricochets 100% of the time on a vulnerable unit or vulnerable enemy. So, and when I'm doing combo points rogue, I have to basically hit with 3 basic attacks anyway to get the full damage or the full value of what's happening with my core skill. And so on every third hit, I get the vulnerable and max damage potential. And in the moment that I barrage that target, my arrows ricochet all of them, all 7 of them, and like that's synergy, right? I'm not using force arrow to generate any sort of resource at all. No, not at all. But there's a synergy that makes what I'm doing considerably better, and it wouldn't work as well without it. If I went with a different basic, right? And so, whereas let's say like when I do, I know taboo, but when I do combo blade or combo twisted blades, I like to go puncture, and the reason for that being is because I can get the combo points meter happening really, really quick. So I can keep my movement speed up a lot because with twisting blades, on the third point, I apply twisted blades and like my movement speed jumps up to 50% for like 3 seconds. So I only have 3 seconds to really, apply 3 combo points again for maximum damage for twisted blades. So I need a basic attack that's fast enough to apply that quick enough for me to keep that momentum and movement speed around. Whereas, force arrow, basic attack, just wouldn't cut it. Like the others don't attack fast enough for me to be as nimble as I wanted to, right? So like there's definitely a lot of synergy between your basic attacks and your core skills that a lot of times you don't see on the surface. You have to really think about it. You pick your core skill and then you go, It's almost like I almost sometimes feel like it's the other way around, where it's like you might start off with a basic skill because it's early game or whatnot, but eventually you pick your core skill or skills and then you go back to your basics and you go, what synergizes with this core skill?
Yeah,
that's how I actually view it.
Me too. I really like this because you would. I guess it's pretty easy to criticize Diablo 3 and just say like every skill, every class, from the beginning of the game anyway. I'm not talking about like super end game, like infinite resource builds or anything like that. At the beginning of the game, every class plays identically, right? You have a generator and you have a spender. And you generate resource and then you spend it. So you build the resource up and then you go bang. And whether that's dropping a bell on an enemy or, doing an elemental arrow or a hungering arrow, or, whatever it is, it's about build up and then bang. And every class has the exact identical vibe when it comes to the way that you build up resource. But in Diablo 4, every class has sort of like a different objective, like if I'm even subclasses, right? So like if I'm a frost, trying to build a frost sork, I really, really want to chill and freeze enemies because a lot of my damage is going to be dependent on enemies being frozen. And if they're not frozen, then my damage doesn't take place, my resource generation doesn't take place, and it's just really hard for me to do anything. So I really have to focus on freezing and chilling enemies. But for Rogue, for example, a lot of times you're going to be focusing on trying to make enemies vulnerable, because a lot of your damage is going to be like generated from that, like whether enemies are vulnerable or not. Or the other big theme for Rogue is trying to get more crits. So if you build in more crits, then you might take skills and upgrades for those skills that allow you to get more crits. And so even from like level 1, you know, you have these objectives that are not necessarily, well, I generate resource and then spend. And because of that, every single class gets this different feeling, kind of in the same way that Path of Exile does. It feels that feeling of building for an objective as opposed to generating and spending like you do in Diablo 3 feels very Path of Exile for me. So like, for example, there's like a modifier. Sorry, I'm trying to pick which skill I'm supposed to take. Oh,
yeah, I was trying out Meteor. I wasn't too happy with that, at least initially.
Oh, I think I'm supposed to go up and take one of these. Okay.
So, just do a firewall.
Oh, right. So, like, in PoE, there's this one build I really like that really pops off when you have a craft on your gloves that basically allows you to double the attacks anytime that you crit. And it's key to the build. It's, like, super critical to the build. The build is built around it. And so, even as you start your character at level 1, you start building towards that, right? You get nodes that allow you to crit more often. You get things that give you more damage on crit. You give things that give you more crit damage, more crit chance, other items that give you more crit. You're just like crit, 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 give me crit, give me crit, give me crit. And you build completely around that theme as much as possible, as much as it, you know, makes sense for the build. And then by the time you get that one thing that just really unlocks, just makes your crit pop off, your entire build is now like very crit themed. And it feels really good, as opposed to just like, well, I generate resource and spend it because I have this set on.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think too, though, like to Diablo 3's credit, and one way, I mean, the introduction of sets and things allowed us to spam, be more, oh, well, you don't really need to really worry about your generator as much. And so like a lot of builds in the game in Diablo 3 have become very spam heavy, right? Like spam your, I won't say core skill, but your main skill that the set is designed around, to be able to spam them as much as you like, right? So they kind of, attempted to address that problem with sets, but you obviously bring in a whole another problem by doing sets as well when it comes to itemization and being where it's very rigid. Half of your gear is taken up by an entire set that legit tells you exactly how you should place said set and what skill you have to use, otherwise you deal negative damage. What it feels like, right? So they try to solve one problem, and which they kind of did, but ended up introducing others at the same time. But yeah.
And
to the
point about these objectives, right? So like Sorcerer has another style, the lightning, sort of like lightning bolt style, right? Charge style. What do you call these skills? Lightning damage, whatever. In that you can pick up this thing called crackling energy. Do you know about crackling energy, Di?
Yeah, I was looking at that a little bit.
I just got the Hydra. Oh, I just got the Hydra. Let's go.
Oh, nice.
I got the extra Hydra now. Okay. So yeah, y'all, Hydra's super busted right now, and this legendary lets me put 2 hydras on the field now. So I just basically doubled my DPS output. Pretty bonkers. But anyway, what crackling energy does is it puts this little orb on the ground, and then you pick it up, and then these random bolts of electricity will come off of you. And there's ways to make the crackling energy spawn more often, for it to do more damage, for it to proc and trigger other things, and you can go really wild with this. But what I really love about all of that is the theming, in that when you pick up a crackling energy, and you can see it on my screen the next time I pick one up, there's a little lightning, I don't know, a bunch of little lightning orbs that appear above the XP bar, like right above the skill bar. And that's how many charges the crackling energy sort of like has left on it. So I imagine like a super end game crackling energy build.
I see it now. Yeah.
What will happen is you'll want to have that full at all times. You'll just want that to be popping off constantly, right? And so even very early on, like you can start getting crackling energy, I believe, at level 4 from Spark, right? Even very early on, the game kind of hints at like, hey, here's this crackling energy thing. You know, wouldn't it be great if you could just have that crackling energy going always? It kind of the game design is kind of like, hey, it's kind of like hint hint, nudge nudge. It's giving you the elbow. It's like tapping you on the shoulder a little bit. It's like, hey, you've got 1 crackling energy, but what about 2 crackling energy? And you're like, oh, I'll take 2 crackling energy. And then he's like, all right, well, what about 4? And you're like, oh, 4. What about infinite? And you're like, oh, I see. And it does a great job of just kind of like, as you level, kind of teaching you that all these things should eventually come together. And it feels great, the theming. So yeah, it's not necessarily, your resources, in other words, aren't necessarily about, you know, what's in the resource bubble on the bottom right hand side of your screen. You know, I believe for the Sorc it's called mana, right? It's not necessarily
Energy.
all...
Oh, no, you're right, mana. Yeah. Sorry, yeah.
It's not necessarily all about mana, right? It could be, for you, for your Sorcerer, it could be about crackling energy. It could be for your Rogue. It could be about crit. It could be about vulnerable. It could be about vulnerable and crit. It could be, you know, it could be about all these different things, and it's kind of just how you build your character that way, and the options that it gives you, that I think makes this game's skill tree so much more interesting than most ARPGs that I've played.
Yeah, and the thing about it is that, like, you know, again, you don't really see all this on the surface, but it's not like you need what's a good word for it? Like, you don't need to go to a website or something like every 5 minutes to know what's going on. Like, it's not shown to you directly, but you know, it as you unravel it, it kind of sort of starts to make sense on its own. And I think that's really cool. Not saying that you would never go to a website for, you know, guys or, you know, those kind of things. But it's one of those things where it's not confusing. I think that's part of
MAXROLL.GG. No, sorry, I had something stuck in there.
Yeah. But yeah, it's you know, it's not confusing per se. Like I mean, obviously with action RPGs, there are going to be elements that where you can't, you know, simplain or simsplain, I guess you could say, like explain something very simple all the time. But you could tell the devs have really tried to, you know, make it to where, you know, a newer player could be like, okay, I can figure this out, or oh, okay, I can see what direction that they're trying to go with this, or I can see why this kind of works this way. Now, of course, you're going to go for, like, you know, or some players are going to go for the most efficient or the most powerful builds, which of course you will obviously go to MAXROLL.gg for that, right? We do that. But initially, just for the experimental, the experimenting stage, I think is really fun, and it allows you to do that.
Yeah, I think that is a really good point, Di, is because what we're seeing in this beta really is like probably the first couple of hours of gameplay of the game. If you play super casually, you might get like 8 hours out of 1 to 25, right? But like we're level 19 and it's not even 2 hours in, so we're kind of blitzing along here. But what we haven't seen is, and I guess we'll see later, and we've seen some like hints at BlizzCon and previous blog posts and so on about things like the Paragon boards and like all the additional complexity that people, frankly, that the long-term players, the Giga Blasters, play Diablo games for, right? Like if all Diablo was the level 1 to 25 experience, we would not be here. So
very much so. But have you noticed though, like they actually wait, like because everybody wants to talk about, not everybody, but like you hear that comment often where what about Paragon, what is Paragon like and things, and if you notice, like they don't really allow you to even mess with that until like late, like level 50, like that's like it's one of those things, it's like one of those things where it's kind of like, it's like, but by that time though, you would have spent considerable amount of time in the game to have an idea of what you want to do, or the things you want to do before you start investing into Paragon. And I think that's a very smart thing because the Paragon boards, just from pictures and images around the internet or whatever like that, or even just what Blizzard has showed so far, they look massive. Like they look like very intricate, right?
Yeah,
so
it looks very. What I've seen on like the blogs and stuff, it's very PoE-esque, where that you have these massive trees where you can it's like cooking. You can like make it however you'd like, and therefore you can mess it up. There's 100 ways to mess it up.
But what I think the important thing about it too is that they don't introduce it so early. Like they wait for you to learn the game a bit more, right? You will mess it up. I mean, everybody's going to. Like no one's going to be immune for that, right? Like we're all going to screw it up several times before we get to a point where we're just like, I think this is the one for me, right?
It's also going to be the first time for the Diablo series that the end game systems are sort of like present at the launch of the game. Rob is in here.
Okay.
I'm gonna. Did he?
He asks for an invite.
Oh,
I don't know if he.
I'm gonna boot him just so we can keep our speedrun quote unquote pure. Because if Rob,
gotcha, okay.
Rob is a complete blaster, and if he shows up in here, he's going to level us way faster than what we're leveling right now.
Right.
I want to keep the 1 to 20 experience pure because the idea is we're doing this
makes sense, yes.
for folks who have very limited time. Like the dad who's I saw a picture on Twitter of like a dad playing Diablo and had his like child in his lap playing the D4 beta, right? And they're like, "Hey, I'm playing the D4 beta." I'm like, "Oh man, that's
cool.
That's a lot. That's like, wow, that's a whole nother level of blasting that I don't think I'm prepared for. Let me message him real quick.
Yeah, I guess let him know we don't He's like, we don't hate you, but we're sort of doing something at the moment, and we're not trying to get from 19 to 25 in 5 minutes with you here. Right. I mean, we would love that initially, but not for this, you know.
I told him we'll group up later. So, yeah, Rob is awesome. He was featured actually on the launcher for the season launch of season 28, actually, for Diablo 3. It was really awesome to see him in the launcher.
Yeah, I love it when Blizzard does that, and they oftentimes feature, you know, not just the, you know, the names, you know, right? You know, like Rob is a name, you know, obviously, you know, he's a well-known name, right? And so like you, however, like you'll see, you know, other streamers who are not so well known that gets featured as well, more often than the big names. You see like Princess of Darkness,
Eva Layla.
one time you saw Eva Layla, you saw Seattle Witch, you know, like, you know, people who've been around for a bit, but not as, you know, they're not on the forefront of the content creation community. Like, you know, they do their own thing.
Yeah, it's not like every single season launch Riker's in the launcher, you know what I mean?
right. You know, and it's like it's really cool because it's kind of like, you know, hey, check out what, you know, what these guys are doing, right? You know, and like that's kind of what it's been for me too as well. Like I actually had my little, you know, spotlight featured when I was first starting to stream, actually, early on. And, you know, I've always thought to myself, I'm like, man, it's like I can't believe they're wanting me on their actual Battle.net launcher. Like, are they serious? Are they sure about this? You know, but it's really, really cool that they support. They don't just try to put the big names out there to, you know, bolster their brand. Like they want you to get a sense of the entire community that's doing stuff in Diablo, and I like that. But let's see. I think you're probably closer to 19 than I am. What'd you find?
I just found a very interesting item that I want to talk about maybe later, once we hit 20, because 20 is our goal here.
Okay.
Yeah, we haven't really talked about key passives, and I think we should, because in press preview and in this beta, it is impossible to get a key passive. So we, you know, even the MAXROLL team has not really had a chance to play around with the key passives. But obviously we can read the tooltips, right? Like, so
yeah.
So we've sat down and we've all theory crafted. We're like, oh, this is wow, that seems really good, but I test it out. And there's a lot of like, I don't know, like wringing of hands, like ooh, I don't know, So we're trying to figure out which ones are good. But I just found a legendary item that allows my key passive to hit one more enemy, and it says the avalanche key passive. So I don't know off the top of my head what these are, because again, we haven't played around.
That's
with
actually
them.
Pretty cool, because I didn't think there would be. I didn't
think so either. I'm very surprised.
Like
by
legendaries
this.
based on those key. Yeah, that's actually pretty cool. That's
Okay, avalanche, and avalanche is not just a eco-terrorist group from Final Fantasy VII. It's also a key passive in Diablo 4. It says, lucky hit, your frost skills have up to a 10% chance of making your next cast of ice shards. Frozen Orb or Blizzard consume no mana and deal 40% multiplicative increased damage. Chances doubled against vulnerable enemies. So 10% chance. Okay, and then what does this say? Applies to one additional cast. What? Oh, so Avalanche says your next cast. Okay. Yeah, so if you cast a frost skill, then your next cast of ice shards, frozen orb, blizzard consume no mana. So this gives 2 casts of those no mana. So you cast any. So basically, you have infinite mana with this. Like you have to do some like John Cena, like John Madden football kind of like organization of your skills and like skill rotation to have infinite mana, but if you have that, you can kind of I can see a path forward to like orchestrate infinite mana for your character. For at least for a frost for a frost build. It would have to be a frost build. So okay, yeah, that's really cool. So you get that key passive and then you build around those skills and now you have infinite mana. That seems really strong. And the fact that we stopped for 2 minutes to look at that is why I say speedrun in quotation marks here.
We just lost our MAXROLL status right there.
Oh no.
Inefficient. You actually read what you put on? Inefficient.
Well, you gotta read it once. Like yeah, that's actually a great point, is that one thing I tell folks is not just to like blindly follow guides, but to learn the game. I mean, especially if you're gonna play it like thousands of hours, you know, which is kind of the point of like a Diablo game anyway. But your time could not be better spent investing in like knowing how the mechanics works.
Right.
I know in Diablo 3 it's fun just to look up like a MAXROLL guide and, you know, drop a bunch of builds, but I think for Diablo 4 you should probably stop and just like read everything. Maybe you go to MAXROLL and you pick up one build and you play it, and but as you go you just read everything. And then that teaches you the game and you learn more mechanics that way. Oh, I gotta sneeze. Oh, Cursed Shrine. Yeah, here we go. See, I love that, man. I had no idea that was gonna be a Cursed Shrine. Oh, there's level 20. GG. We did it. The time is 1 hour 57. I think I estimated this at 2 hours, so I was like,
you did.
Right on the
lost,
nose.
and we lost 2 minutes. So that's like 155, really.
Yeah, we easily lost some time there. Also, we're in a 2-player party instead of a 4-player party. Can you imagine if we were doing 4-player?
Hacks.
Yeah, and then I imagine there's other optimizations. Oh, I forgot to use my XP potion. I'm stupid. Oh wait, you can't use your XP potion till level 20 anyway. Right, requires level 20. Got it. Okay, so I'm using it now.
Wait, the one I used was like the weak Azalea or whatever like that, and I was able to use that.
Oh, so I'm
as
dumb.
Level 1. Yeah, you chose the wrong one. You chose. Yeah, that's what it was.
There it is.
I mean, it's 5%, but you know.
That's 5%. That's so much faster.
Hey, grab your chest over here. I don't. You didn't finish the whatchamacallit. You're missing 35 of obols.
Oh no, I'm in the middle of this fight.
I'll come save you. I'll throw more hydras.
So, well, we're gonna wrap this up at the end of this dungeon. So, Di, tell me, now that you've played Sorcerer 1 to 20, how do you feel about it? What are your thoughts? Give me a comparison to Rogue, since that's been your specialty this whole time as well.
Source feels exactly what I thought it was going to feel like. You know, just a kind of like a, magic wielding, throwing spells, like causing chaos in the battlefield, which is what I expected to see, right? Like, so there's just a lot going on as a spellcaster. In terms of Source, versus Rogue, you can definitely tell that, the difference between, like the playstyle. Like, I've always known Rogue to be very position heavy, but I didn't realize how heavy it was until I started playing Source, right? Where my Hydras don't really care, where the enemies are, right? They don't care. Same thing with Chain Lightning. A lot of times they don't much care. You are, there is Rogue is very nimble, so you do kind of have that. Whereas the sources, there's that kind of big cast feeling, but you feel strong for doing so. But I like it. Like I really like the source more than I thought I was going to actually. Yeah, it feels fun to play. Now, I don't mean just the power, just the skills themselves. Like I enjoy Source 1 through 25 way more than I do the Wizard in D3 for sure.
Yeah, it actually feels. I don't know, to me, Sorc feels a lot more. It has a lot more in common. I don't want to say it's the same because it's not, but it has a lot more in common with the Diablo 2 Sorceress, right? It's given me those vibes. All right, with that, dungeon complete. DiEoxidE, is there anything you want to say before we wrap up the podcast here?
Well, first off, thanks for having me on the podcast. Of course, you could have chose anyone else, but you chose me to team up with you on this, and it's been really, really cool, man. Even just jumping into the beta, playing with you, and picking your brain on, or nerding out, really, about all things Diablo 4 related. So I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Do you have any channels you want to plug, Di?
Oh, well, you can find me on YouTube, DiEoxidE there. You can find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/DiEoxidE. Mostly there you will find the majority rogue gameplay, but I promise I will play other classes. I do plan on playing a druid a little bit next weekend, so that'll be kind of fun. Yeah, I've never actually played druid ever before, so not even in D2 because I didn't play much D2. I know, blasphemy. But yeah, I'm actually excited to do that. But yeah, if you're looking for some really cool, very detailed, analytical rogue gameplay, for sure, stop by. I would love to have you.
All right, everyone. And with that, we're going to get out of here. This has been a blast. That's 1 to 20. I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you get your wolf pet this upcoming weekend in the Diablo 4 open beta, if you haven't already. Make sure you do that so you have that on launch. That wolf pack pup is just so cute. Anyway, have a good one, and we'll see you later. Peace.